Hello everyone, I am Tacet and happy Halloween! Later today we're going to be doing a Halloween stream with a bunch of announcements related to the channel as well, so that'll be at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, probably about an hour or two from by time this video ends up getting up. But anyways, let's go and get into the Noisy Neighbors Gems of War event, in which the Stringfiddler is added to the game. This is a pretty unique week in that we got quite a few things all happening at once, aside from all the Halloween events and a new Halloween pet and a little bit of goodies that we got from the little flash offer thing. This was the first level 15 kingdom we ended up getting this week, specifically for red. The 16 star for Zaejin and 16 star for Forest of Thorns tomorrow with the new mythic that is going to be introduced to the game. So, as far as the Stringfiddler, it was good. As far as its trait stone, let's go over that first. This is actually one of the better trait stones in the game. There are a ton of green, purple, Empower troops. Every single one of them is extremely viable to go get. There's not a single green, purple with Empowered that is not viable, so definitely go and stock up if you don't already have them all traded. They're all relatively low rarity too, so it should be pretty easy to trade, especially having access to them this week for only 200 glory each, since you get 2 per pack. The main thing that you'd want to do as far as the Empowers is Leprechaun. However, all of them are viable, as well as Wall of Tentacles earlier in the game. And later in the game, you'd want to go for things like Stringfiddler, Alderfowler, and Kraken. And yes, Stringfiddler is one of them. He did get nerfed twice already this week, within like one day. He was originally going to have a 13 mana cost, but now has 14, and he was originally going to have more explosions, and now he has much less. So he's a little bit less overpowered than he was originally going to be, but still decent overall. It silences an enemy, explodes a bunch of gems, and then ends up going and gaining an extra turn, just like any other goblin will. Obviously, extra turn into guarantee explosions is pretty powerful. That's why Fizzbang ends up needing to get nerfed after a day. They didn't exactly nerf him in the fact that he still has his explosion. However, they did nerf him in a way that the explosions are a lot more trivial than they were originally going to be. However, one nice thing that this does have, particularly for a Truffle synergy, is he does finally fill that gap in that he summons a Leaf Storm, so you don't necessarily have to use your hero anymore in order to do that Leaf Storm. You can simply use the Stringfiddler, and that will fill the gap that Truffle previously had, using a Truffle plus Stringfiddler combo. So that's going to be pretty decent for that kind of team. However, due to the fact that they double nerfed him, I don't think he's going to be useful for too many other things, just because in most contexts you would use a Leprechaun instead of a Stringfiddler, simply because the Leprechaun gets to start with full mana, whereas Stringfiddler does not. And even though Stringfiddler would probably loop a little bit better once it gets going, since it doesn't lose its turn as often and has a nice silence to synergize with it, it's not going to start as powerful, and generally you want that stronger start, which would be the Leprechaun as priority. But still going to have its uses, if nothing else, with some various Truffle teams. And that is that, as far as he's concerned. For this week, we do have a 50 souls whenever we end up completing out the Battle Crashers in PvP. If you're doing a bunch of PvP, you'll find a bunch of the spooky imps, and you'll be able to kill those for a bunch of 50 additional souls every single time. Other than that, we do have 10% to all Zaejin and 10% to all goblins. This is pretty relevant because for 2 reasons. One of them is Iron Gut has 20% bonus stats. So if you're looking to farm something with Iron Guts, whether it be doing high-level delves, trying to get them to 500, or just doing things like Explore to try to complete them out following wherever the 20% are with an Iron Gut, you'll have plenty of options to be able to use him to be even stronger than he normally is, as 20% is quite a substantial amount of additional damage, which also indirectly means a higher chance that he will initially devour with his attack. So really, really good time to be using Iron Gut. Other than that, pretty good time to be using Thief. We do have a Thief Hero class event today, and it is advised getting it up a little bit, particularly this week, as it does have 20% additional stats, as it does count as both a Zaejin and as a Goblin. So do be mindful of that. Other than that, if you want to use this thing in in PvP this week, or Explore, rather than using a Leprechaun, while it doesn't get as quick of a start as I mentioned, it does end up giving you 400 additional gold, so it could be a good time to go and utilize that to get a little bit of extra gold. It might slow down your team, but if you're going for an infinite loop against higher level content, it might not necessarily slow you down as much. As far as the keys, this is a Goblin week, so we have a lot of really good things within the drop table right now if you do want to go and use your key. The most noteworthy one, and pretty obvious one, is Iron Gut is available right now in event keys. Obviously, the chance of getting him is really, really low. You could open like 800, 1,000, still not get him. He's a 0.11% chance drop, if I'm not mistaken. So that's just going to be your chance of getting him. One nice thing about this currently still, though, is Zaejin does only have one mythic, and that one mythic is Iron Gut. So if you do happen to get a mythic, it will actually be Iron Gut, unlike some kingdoms that are starting to get, of course, 2 mythics now, in which case it could be either or. But this one still has one, and it is still pretty much the best troop in the game, or among one of them. So definitely something to possibly consider. And even if you don't get them, you get quite a few good utility troops along the way, like getting more copies of Grapple Pod, Nobbin Brothers, Fizzbang, and stuff like that. Do keep in mind the 4 troops that are on this page that are not within this drop table are the 4 from the faction. So the Toadstool, the Fungal thing, the Truffle, which you have to go get from all of these, all 4 of these you have to get from the Portal and Amithrax, and the Mushroom Man. So all 4 of those are exclusive only to Amithrax, whereas the rest of these you would end up getting as drops, and the only other exception being, of course, the new Epic, which you get from the Epic shop this week to use for the event. Speaking of that, might as well go and head right in there. So, of course, we do have invasions this week. We got 2 pretty interesting things, both of which are actually viable, including this troop outside of the event. Might as well show them both together because I believe I'm using them both on the same team. So, one other thing that we have for this specific week, as many of you may have already noticed, is we have Haunted Towers. They do these seasonally. I forget every single holiday that has them, but there are a few holidays where they do like festive little towers. And for Halloween, we have Haunted Towers. Nothing really too annoying. If anything, it's almost easier having to fight them than compared to what we normally have to deal with. So, from this invasion event, we actually get 2 new things, both of which are being utilized on this team. If you spend 250 gems, you'll end up getting yourself this new Nobert's Turnip. The most noteworthy thing about this is it has a 3 mana drain, but even more noteworthy is it gets to gain an extra turn every single time. So this is now the 2nd weapon that has a automatic extra turn specifically off of one of its perks. There are more weapons that have an extra turn, but currently the ones that have it off their perks are the Rope Darts and this. And many of these weapons, including this one, are balanced around the fact that they don't have an extra turn, despite the fact that they do have an extra turn, which is kind of weird, but that is how the both of them are balanced. It's why they're both considered much stronger than the other weapons that do extra turn, simply because for whatever reason, given that these are a perk, they don't really put that into the balance of the weapon. So they're really, really strong, just like Rope Dart. So this thing ends up creating a pretty standard weapon, just the fact that it has an extra turn on it, making it a lot stronger, but it's the same standard typing weapon. It's just boosted based on goblins, does a mix of 2 different colors, green and red. Green is really useful, red not so much for most goblins that currently exist. That could in some synergies like Goblin Rocket and stuff, but the green is definitely extremely important. And this just gets the full base boost ratio based on goblins. You're generally going to be getting a lot of mana from that, and even if it misses, you still get an extra turn. It's going to be really nice off of that. As far as the invasion troop, we can just simply go and one-shot with our ability, or at least chip them down a really good deal. This does the standard 3 to 5 times additional damage. The other aspect that he has is he either gets to... he also has automatic extra turn, which is pretty relevant, as all goblins do. But his other main gimmick is that he gets to either explode 4 gems or enchant all other allies, both of which are really good, and he could even potentially be semi-viable outside of the event itself. It's not going to be like game-breaking, but still a nice little combination, since either of his 2 options will end up accumulating more mana for your team. So let's go get a Truffle right there. At this point, we could pretty much just go and Truffle kill them, maybe throw 1 Turnip just for fun. Do it on the other one just to lower it down into kill range, and then we'll have all the things that we need to go and kill them out with. So we'll just do this, and just get a Skull here if we can. Doesn't look like we can, so we'll just go down the Turnip route and just kill it with the Turnip. And just go Turnip into Truffles and win it out. And that's pretty much what I'm using. I'll also be showing a team in a moment. I'll end up using it into first slot once we get over to some of the other things that we end up getting this week. So, of course, this most recent Wednesday, we ended up getting the Halloween pet. That is just a little cosmetic thing. That not too important if you didn't end up picking it up, but nice to have just for the sake of having it for kingdom upgrades and stuff. And it probably won't be available for a very, very long time. They do keep, like, somewhat bringing back some of the old pets, and they'll probably have a better system for it into the future. However, the pet from yesterday will not be available until who knows when, as far as the future is concerned. Of course, today we have a class event of Thief. Thief is a pretty decent hero class. I would say it's arguably the best hero class in the entire game that has stealthy, due to the fact that it has a lot of great utilities, like damage to last slot, 30% dodge, as well as a 7% instant kill every kill. So overall, I'd personally say it's one of the better stealthies, if not the best stealthy in the game. So definitely worth considering using and leveling up. And if nothing else, it has 20% bonus stats this week. It's also generally really good if you're using in a skeleton key team. It's one of the few hero classes that's insanely good with its own weapon that it has. As far as Soulforge, we have have ourselves a Infernus and Ketris within the drop table. These are the two current most noteworthy things that are available right now. These are both various damage sources. In the current state of the game, it really just depends which way you want to go as far as which one is more useful. Infernus, still a really good early game pickup as far as its overall damage. Main reason for this is he has a base damage of 10. So he's already going to be hitting pretty hard, even if your stats are relatively low to begin with. He also covers a lot of ground, being able to do a lot of damage, a lot of board clear, a lot of mana accumulation, having his own storm attached to that, and having the best burn in the game, being able to burn all enemies in a single extra turn. And that, of course, is more powerful earlier on in the game, given that that's 12 damage per turn, and 12 damage later in the game per turn is a lot lower than it is later in the game. So, or it's a lot higher in early game than it is in later game. So the earlier you get this, generally the more effective it is. Of course, this can still be useful in later game with things that boost ratio based specifically on burning, but as far as the 3 damage per turn per troop is obviously better when the stats are lower against your enemies. So that's a pretty good pickup, particularly if you're picking it up as one of your first few mythics, or even as your first mythic if you want to. And other than that, Catches the Bull. This is more of a mid-game to kind of end-game kind of thing. It functions very similar to Infernus in that you're primarily using it as a really heavy damage source. The biggest difference with this is this can actually upscale to mid-range content. You can sometimes use it for higher level content as well, but the basic premise is it boost ratios based on attack, life, and armor. So if you give it any additional attack, life, and armor based on something that can infinitely get it up, like Urskea's Shield, or Yasmin's Pride, or Earth's Fury, or anything that can specifically give them attack, armor, or HP to a really high amount based on upscaling based on the enemy stats, are generally going to be used with Catches the Bull. He ends up hitting one troop really hard and then hitting the 2 adjacents. The general way that you use him is you hit 2nd slot, you hit 4th slot, and then you win. And you just do boost ratios to get him up to the point where he is capable of doing that. Generally pretty bad against teams that have a lot of stealthy or things that kind of make him have to hit a specific target to get it out of the way first. And other than that, he also gains a bunch of extra stats whenever he keeps accumulating red. So sometimes he's used on various red farming related teams in order to feed him mana. But overall, really great damage source, great utility to have. And 2 really nice damage sources are available this week, depending on which way you want to go about it. Other than that, the Turnip you can just get through 250 gems from the event, which is the preferred and advised way of getting that weapon. However, as far as other weapons, we only have one other one, and that is Flesh Ripper. Flesh Ripper, not the most insanely good of the Mang-like weapons. However, it is still a Mang-like weapon, so it's still relevant in that regard. It eliminates all of the enemy's armor, similar to any Mang-like weapon, and then deals damage boosted by the armor eliminated. So let's say you eliminate 90 armor, it'll end up doing 30 additional damage. So it can end up stacking a decent amount of damage. The biggest issue with this is that's generally not enough to ever one-shot something. If it was a boost ratio that it could, like maybe a 1-to-2 or even just a 1-to-1, which would be actually really powerful if it was. But if it was something a little bit higher, it'd probably be a bit more useful. But in the current state, with it being at 1-to-3, it is not really useful compared to any of the other Mang-like weapons. You're pretty much just better off just using Mang itself or Earth's Fury or really any other thing that you might have laying around that does a similar effect, as this one's pretty low tier as far as the genre of weapon is concerned. You still might want to pick it up since you won't be able to get it for ages. It's going to be like probably 7 months, if not more, until you'll be able to see this thing again. However, it's still a nice thing to consider nonetheless, just for collection purposes. Other than that, let's go and get into a few other teams then. So, as far as things related to this week, we have ourselves the other invasion team. Never mind, that's the one I already showed. We have the other invasion team. Oh, nope, this isn't the other invasion team. Where on earth did my other invasion team go? There it is. No, that's not it either. Did it disappear? I think it might have disappeared. Anyways, let's go over to teams. Right here, Double Humility. Double Humility, of course, is one of the better things that you can end up going and upgrading with your medals. This is something I'll be covering very soon, is things to upgrade with medals. Of course, one of the nice things about Humility is you end up gaining a bunch of HP and armor, and whenever this thing takes damage, it gives a bunch of armor and magic to your allies. You can utilize this in order to get the infinite loop of the truffle into the... or the Turnip into the truffle going, and basically just make it so they can end up killing at a quicker pace, given that you can give them magic. Also pretty good, given that a lot of people might not have the magic buffs yet. It's basically one of the ways that you can utilize HP in order to essentially use it as a magic buff for various team compositions, and you just end up putting 2 things behind it. In that case, 2 looping options. As far as our next option here, we have ourselves a version that ends up using the Fiddler. This ends up opting to not use the double truffle, but ends up putting the Fiddler in instead, kind of using it similar to how we would end up using a hero for the most part. And then we just end up using Mirage Queen in order to still give us those mana starts onto most of our team. So what I mainly want to go for here is that freeze is going to completely mess us up, but hopefully that is the only freeze he ends up getting. He does end up denying our green here, but that should be enough to get us rolling. And it looks like we pretty much just win now, so we'll just go and get ourselves a truffle. Oh, he does have the very annoying submerge there that is going to slightly get in the way. I am actually going to silence him. Of course, we do have the ability to mass silence when using this build, so we are just going to be able to go and just target anything that's about to go and get mana. And even though it's not as loopy as far as a double truffle, it's a lot more damage if we were to ever end up losing the, or not a lot more damage, but a lot more disable when we do end up dropping the loop, simply because we'd be able to have a way to negate out any of their casting capabilities. So if we're accidentally going to give them mana, or if we're being frozen a lot, it's a great way to have an alternative to counter them out, rather than depending on the infinite loop. Of course, we did end up getting the infinite loop there, though it is slightly less likely when using this team composition compared to using double truffles, so do be mindful of that. But it's a lot safer against freeze without even needing to put a cleanse on your team. And of course, you could end up using, if you so want, to use Cedric's on your team in order to make it a little bit better to cleanse out. So, next up, we have ourselves the still the faction here. Oh, I end up moving the other invasion, that's why. There it is. So here's the other invasion team. I might as well even go show it in Invasions itself. Let's go and bring this thing over. I end up moving the wrong one. I end up moving the faction one, or I meant to move the faction one away, but apparently I accidentally moved the invasion one. Good job. But let's go and head over to Invasions real quick and go and mess with this right here. So all we have to do, of course, is just paste the team. And of course, if you want to paste any of these teams into your teams, they're all going to be in the description below, as well as the first comment in the video. And I'm also using this with Thief, mainly just to show the 20% that we have to be able to utilize this week. So we'll go with this. Of course, we still have Valraven Towers as well. Valraven and Spooky Towers around. So this, of course, we'll be able to go and get a disable, or get a explosion. We will not be able to use the disable aspect, but we'll still be able to use this guarantee extra turn into a into the explosion, which will allow us to get rolling a bit quicker. Other than that, one reason why I'm specifically using Earth's Fury with this team is to be able to go and increase our attack. This is a really good method to be using, and probably the most useful time to ever be able to utilize a Earth's Fury is specifically during invasions. And the main reason for that is you actually gain more attack than you would if you were using Mang, because you're doing a 3-to-1 boost ratio. So you're going to be getting 3 of their, for every 3 armor, giving them 1 attack. And that's going to make it so you're getting about a 1.6 overall value if you do that, but with the 5 times multiplier, compared to if you were using it a Mang. Because of course, at 3 times multiplier, he'd be at the exact same damage. So if you were using a Mang and you were using an Earth's Fury, and your thing was at 3 times multiplier, they'd both be getting essentially the exact same value, since the 3-to-1 boost ratio just 3 timesing it back to a 1 times, which is what Mang does. However, of course, if you have it at Mythic, it's going to be doing a 5 times, basically bringing it to about 1.66 repeating effectiveness, rather than Mang's 1 times effectiveness. So you end up getting a lot of value from using Earth's Fury onto any invasion troop. It's one of the better methods for using Earth's Fury. And yeah, probably one of the few times ever actually still bring it out. We do have Goblin Rocket on this team. The main reason for this is to be able to go and constantly keep taking skulls. So of course, with Goblin Rocket, we end up getting a lot of board control from that. And with that board control, we can simply just go and keep setting up skulls. And just keep doing all 3 of their explosions. And yeah, just kill everything out like that. Ends up getting pretty quick kills due to his 5 times multiplier into Earth's Fury, feeding him basically 1 shot into everything. So ends up working out pretty nice, and also probably a better option if you're upscaling to the very late battles, if you're planning on going for leaderboard or just doing a lot of battles for the event in general. Anyways, other than that, other teams I wanted to show. Let's see. This we already went over. This was for the faction that already came over that we did on Tuesday. This was a repeat? Oh no, this is just the same thing. Oh no, this was the class event. Oh, we can still go show this in PvP, because why not? So of course with the class event we are restricted to both goblins and, or specifically goblins from Zaejin. And of course this is all goblins from Zaejin. So all we really have to do now is go and get Turnip rolling. And with that Turnip we'll be able to get double truffle going, and from double truffle we will just win. This team unfortunately does not get to utilize the red we create. However, that's not really too big a deal, because it's still going to be able to get going really quick and then stay going from that point between the truffle into turnips. So we'll just keep doing these 2 and be good to go. Let's go and keep getting our hits. I am using the Thief with this. As you saw right there, I believe we just triggered our 7% kill right there. That was a 7 damage specifically from extra turns. But regardless, one of the perks from Thief just ended up killing me out there, so that works. Go get another poke there. Go get another truffle, and shoot, pretty much be good to go. Another truffle, and then we can just kill it with anything we want. I guess we'll just throw Turnip at it, and it is almost dead. Apparently, it does not want to die. Luckily, we have Hunter's Mark from the class itself, which allows us to do 2x skull damage, and we can simply just kill it out with the 1 skull there. So, ends up working out. And anything else underneath our list of many teams? Nope, that is it. So, anyways, if you guys have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below, and I'll make sure to get over to all of them. Other than that, don't forget, we are doing a Halloween stream. I guess by the time this video gets up, probably about an hour from now, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we're going to be having a fun little costume, hanging out for a little bit, probably doing a bit of grinding after we finish out the class event, and yeah, I have a few announcements and a few polls on the stream as well for us to discuss. So we'll have a lot of fun. Hope to see you guys there, and I will catch all of you later. Goodbye, everyone, and have a wonderful Halloween.